And what's very important that everyone knows is that we have in Illinois a primary that we elect our individuals from our party in this election. It's not a caucus or anything like that. We elect in this partisan primary.
Mm-hmm.
So you choose the person that you want to run within your party in November. So this is a partisan election. So back to your statement, Bill, earlier, I think people are somewhat hesitant to establish their political party, and that's why we see less of a voter turnout in a primary.
They're not hesitant up in Cook County. They just go to the cemetery and get them, and they get immigrants and they vote them several times. They have a different way of voting up there in Cook County, but that's the way it is.
Do you have any idea how many of the 50 states have partisan as opposed to nonpartisan primaries?
Well, they all have partisan, but there's a difference between an open primary and a closed primary.
Yeah.
We have closed, and I don't know how many states have open and how many states have closed. But
Well, there
in
are arguments
Wisconsin,
both ways.
yeah,
Yes.
they do. So you could go in and choose whichever way you want. The difficulty in that, although the premise, the idea of it feels like that should be a right that we should be able to exercise. It's not we don't have a right to vote; it's a privilege. But the problem with that is that you may have someone that is identified with the other party that would come in and try and bolster the votes for the person they know that's not going to be the good candidate for November.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be manipulated, having open primaries. So there's different ways to look at it. But in Illinois, that's how our legislature has decided.
Well, there's some highbinder who can manipulate absolutely anything you can think of.
They prove it every day.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well, let's get into the early ballots, the in-person ballots. Maybe we should tackle the 17-year-olds first. There's so much to cover. We're going to be here until probably Friday.
Yeah. That's how it feels at our office, too.
I'm sure.
We'll send out for lunch.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the 17-year-olds. Now, that's brand new.
Right.
648-5510. Somebody might want to weigh in on this. I have a rather biased
Yeah, it'd be
opinion,
interesting to see
about some things.
the constituents out there, how they feel about this new law. Our legislature passed a law, and our governor signed into law a public act that allows 17-year-old kids, students,
Well,
children, whatever,
Simple as
because
that.
you're under 18, you're still a child, 17-year-olds to register to vote if they would be eligible to vote in the general election in November. So they have to be turning 18 by the general election.
Uh-huh.
And our system kicks them out when we put them in if it's not eligible. And then
Right.
we tell them they're not. But that's the key. So their idea behind it is, well, if the person that I want to vote, that I'm going to vote for in November, I didn't really get to choose who I wanted to vote in March. So I should be able to choose who I want in March and vote for them again in November. That's the idea behind it. It was a Lake County issue that I believe was a principal and a group of students from Lake County, Illinois, that put that out there, and their representative brought that forward, and a lot of people got on that bill, and it was both Republicans and Democrats that supported that bill. So,
Figure.
anyway,
well,
I'm interested.
Why is it that the legislature is loath to tackle anything that's pretty meaty, but they can sure pass a heck of a lot of things that, like this, and like this business of you can't put the gratuity on the tab if there is a party of 8 or more? That's illegal. Some legislator must have had service he didn't think was up to par, and he thought, by golly, I'll fix that, I'll make a law.
While you ponder that, we'll give Mr. Ash a chance to flip the console, and we do have some sponsors we need to honor. We're right back live in the studio here. Mr. Ash is having console troubles. You have to move the cat out of the way. Everything will be fine. We were just about to take the diapers off the 17-year-olds and lead them to the polls. What? Sorry about that, Mrs. Turner, I'm sorry. But anyway, seriously, my opinion, which has just been said, is that those youngsters, with all respect, we got some great kids out there, but there's a maturation point, and I just don't think that they're mature enough to exercise judgment without a lot of influence. Now, come on, folks, tell me I'm wrong out here. That's my opinion.
Yeah, somebody who went up there and lobbied for this. I wish we could hear from somebody to hear why it's such a valid idea.
At some point in time, the voters are, although they haven't evidenced much of it, the voters are supposed to evidence some sort of maturity. I haven't seen a whole lot of that here recently.
Yeah.
So, what about 17-year-old voting, Sally?
Well, I do what the
Sure.
law tells me to do, and my staff as well. We register whoever they say that legally we can register.
Right. You don't make policy, you just work there.
Absolutely.
By the way, I want to include myself in that when I was 17, in that maturation category. I would include myself in one who was quite immature at that 17.
Well, that's a good conversation to have, actually. If we have all had children as well. If and my daughter is 22 and my son is 26, and I remember their being 17. It hasn't been that long ago. And did I think, even though at the time my kids were 17, they were very involved in what was going on in the political world around them because they grew up in it.
Sure.
But
But that's the point right there, Sally. They were involved because you were involved.
right.
And
had
had
some
you not
knowledge.
been involved, they'd have not even been aware, let alone involved.
And that's exactly true. I mean, they were knowledgeable about who the candidates were, and because that was a discussion at the dinner table.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
So I guess it would be for each individual, and maybe that's something that parents need to have a conversation about, which is, should I talk to my son or daughter to tell them, yeah, it's a good idea to get registered to vote. You're 17, and I think that's probably, you know what's going on, you pay attention, you should go register to vote. Or not.
Is it oftentimes that the young people, 17, 18, and so forth, are registered, or do many of them just blow it off and say that my vote doesn't count? That just like fingernails on a blackboard, isn't it?
Well, registration, a lot of times in colleges and in high school civics class, the kids get extra credit if they go register to vote, which that's an incentive, but whether or not then they come back to vote
Right.
is a whole other story. I don't know. I don't think they get any reward for that, which they shouldn't. Registering, yes, but if they voted, I don't know.
You just mentioned a word that's almost void in education today, civics class. That ought to be pretty basic, but I don't think, do we have in the curricula today a course called a civics class or
Well, I will
per se?
kudos to Jeff Cooper. Jeff Cooper is a teacher at Lincoln High School.
Uh-huh.
And he works very closely with us on getting election judges
Oh, good
and
for
things
him.
like that. And he teaches about government
Good.
and voting and things to that nature. I do know that.
That's great.
Mhm.
And those kids that do not get that kind of exposure are the poorer for it, because basic knowledge of our government and how it's supposed to work and so forth, where do you go without that?
Yeah.
Let's try and tackle this online
Oh, sure.
registration.
In June...
That's new too.
That's correct. The legislature again passed a bill, and the governor signed into a law, what's called online voter registration.
Mm-hmm.
In June, on the State Board of Elections website, an individual can go on the website, in which we'll have the link from our website, and they can register to vote online. That registration, they only can perform that registration if they have a valid driver's license or a valid state ID. Excuse me.
And explain that rationale, please.
Yes, and the reason for that is because as they're proceeding along in their information and inputting that on the screen, when they get toward the end where it says to insert your signature, it will pull the signature from the Secretary of State's website when you sign for your driver's license. So it pulls that signature and puts that in place. Then that registration gets processed, sent to our office if they're a Logan County voter. And you're not registered to vote until we confirm that you're registered you to vote. So there could be a problem with it. We need to make sure that indeed that everything was correct and it's the right district and all that good stuff. So you'll get a voter registration card back in the mail if you register online, but that's not until June.
Okay. And that's a new law, so
Yes.
be aware. How about caucuses? That's something we don't really much hear about.
Yeah, we
here.
do on a township level.
Mm-hmm.
In the, I think it's in November of the odd years, they changed the date. It used to be in December, but I think they moved it to November. Townships, they caucus, and that's how they get on the ballot, which is a little bit different than how we do when we have a partisan election to put us on the ballot. By the way, I am on the ballot, and I appreciate your vote in March.
I guess we'll just vote for you then,
Well,
since you're
The
appreciative.
name is Mrs. Turner, but she's on the ballot as Sally Litterly.
That's right. I am on the ballot as Sally Litterly, which that's how I filed in November.
Right.
Do we have a call, Mr. Ash? I can't tell.
Talk about a one-arm
Not
paper
ready?
hanger here.
Do we have a call yet, sir? Oh, we do. Sally, you put the headset on,
Oh,
please, so
okay.
you can hear the call. And Mrs. Busby, you and I will share the headset. This station is running a budget here. Go right ahead, caller.
Yes, I had a question about, we've talked about all the people that can register. Are there any group of people who cannot register to vote?
No, not in
Fair
Illinois. If you are,
have-
if you're incarcerated, if you're presently incarcerated, you cannot register to vote. If you are pending sentencing, you can register to vote. If you are a sentenced person in jail or in prison, you can't register to vote. And then when they get out of, let's say they get sentenced to prison for 10 years, when they get out of prison, they can come back and register to vote in Illinois.
Isn't that interesting? Now, we
Yeah.
were talking
Yeah.
about that.
No matter what type of misdemeanor, felony, X,
Right.
any, if they have served their time in prison after they're out, then they could register to vote.
Yes, you're exactly right. Illinois is different than some other states.
We're
And
different.
some states, they revoke their voting rights altogether. But in Illinois, our legislature has decided that once you've served your time, you're a new person, you can come back out and register to vote.
And run for office.
Well, some
Well,
things
we've
you
got
can't.
that. Mel Reynolds up there in Cook County, convicted felon, running for office.
Some offices
Okay.
Young
can't.
lady, do you have any other further questions for Mrs. Turner?
Not at the moment, but I'll call back if I do.
Thanks for
thank you very,
listening.
very much. We appreciate the call.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. That is interesting now. You see, we have Mel Reynolds up there in Chicago running for office, convicted felon.
I don't believe that you
It's interesting.
can be a convicted felon and run for mayor or for sheriff, but they had to go back in and put legislation in to put those caveats in there that says that you can't be convicted. Convicted, I don't know if it says felon. I think it says felon. Yeah, I think it is. But I guess you can be a convicted felon and be the county clerk, which is interesting, isn't it? Oh, sure, I'll run your elections for you. Do your taxes.
Talk about the fox
I
watching the
suppose that
house.
comes under the
Gosh.
broad mantle of forgiveness, so to speak.
Okay.
Depends
stop.
upon how you define forgiveness, you know.
Yeah, I would certainly hope that person wouldn't be elected, but you never
Yeah,
know.
Well, that's the way it is.
But it could happen. It could sure happen. We were kind of into this online voter registration and public university early voting.
Yes, in Illinois we have what's called early voting. In Logan County, since we're not a huge county, our early voting site is the Logan County Courthouse, which is the same site that we use for absentee. In bigger cities and counties, let's just use Springfield for example, they have early voting sites in different places, such as they may have them in their township halls where a person can go cast their ballot early, but not in Logan County. We don't. I have 4 people in my office full time, and the rest are part time. So we can't manage early voting sites. But you could, in reality, set up one at Walmart, and you could set one up wherever you wanted to, wherever people would come quite often, and have them vote. There's lots of problems with early voting. I think I have a problem in that early voting is even open on Easter. It's just the hours of early voting are unbelievably crazy. Of when you have to, by statute, that you have to be open if you have these other permanent polling places for early voting. So in Logan County, we only have the one early voting site, and that is our office, and it's within the confines of the courthouse, and only open from 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, with the exception of the Saturday before the election.
Sally, I'd like to do just quickly, we've talked about voting and so forth, the entire program, but your office serves the county in many, many other ways. Could you just kind of give us an overview of some
Sure.
of the ways in which you serve the citizens of Logan County?
Sure, and there's a few new things that I'd like to mention that have happened in our office, new laws and things of that nature. One of the things that my office, because we're in a county of under 60,000, we also act as the recorder of deeds. So we're the county clerk and recorder of deeds, which is a huge undertaking, the recorder of deeds. Every piece of real estate that's changed hands in Logan County comes through our office, and it's a very tedious process to make sure that that's all indexed correctly and that we house that correctly. Regarding that, we have a new system online. It's called Tapestry in Laredo, which if you get on our website, again, our website's very helpful. If you get on our website, you can look under recording documents, and you can see that that's something that you can sign up for to pay for if you're a title searcher, or there's a free aspect of it, such as you can go in and search your real estate records for free. It'll tell you when something got filed. Just say, for instance, Bill, if you bought a piece of property last week and you wanted to make sure it got filed, you can go in on this site, put your name in, and it will say, here's the date it was recorded, and here's the document number. So you can check all that information on your own. The other thing that we have is another service, and it is Property Fraud Alert. And I think this is a really important tool that I hope that we did a press release about it, but we haven't had a lot of people sign up for it. But this is, you go in on that link on our website, you will register your name, and when anything gets filed in your name, you will get an email, or you can get a phone call, whatever you prefer, that says you had a document filed with your name on this date. And you probably know that you had a document filed because you probably just went to the bank and got a mortgage, bought a house, whatever. So you know that. But it's the times when you don't know that. If something gets filed in your name, someone might be out there that filed a lien. You don't know when that got filed because you got no notice of it. So that is a red flag to you. Now, we have to accept all documents that come into our office. There's nothing that prohibits us from accepting documents, except for if it's not 8.5 by 11, if it doesn't have the 3 by 5 square in the upper right-hand corner, if it's not certain type. Those are the types of things. If it doesn't have the grantee grantor on it, if it doesn't have the property tax ID number on it, those types of things we can refuse a document. But we can't refuse a document that says Judy Busby puts a lien on Bill Gossett's house. We have no idea. We don't know what your authority is to put a lien on his house, if it's a mechanic's lien or anything like that. So that Property Fraud Alert is a really good tool, and I encourage everybody to sign up for that.
That would, pardon my ignorance, that would come under the general heading of this identity theft type business?
Sure, absolutely, yeah, exactly. And that information is shared with no one. It's just on the Property Fraud Alert, and it alerts you when something occurs with you give no other information. You don't give a social security number or anything like that. You just give your name. And whenever anything gets indexed that is even remotely close to your name, it'll send you an email or call you and let you know that that's something's been filed in
A
your
bad
name.
thing has happened.
So that's a really important feature. I would encourage. I mean, I have it. Mine pops up daily because there's always something
Sure.
as county clerk. So
Yeah,
I'm like, what
right.
was that? Yeah. But anyway, so
Well,
at least
it's
we know it
interesting.
works.
You know, her office is really a complex place up there, and with no discredit to Joe the plumber, the average Joe the plumber doesn't realize, or Mrs. Plumber as the case may be, doesn't realize how much you serve the county in so many ways.
Yeah, we
So-
also
and-
do. Yeah, but we also do taxes. The portion of taxes that we're responsible for is that we take all the tax levies from all the taxing bodies, parks, schools, libraries, villages, all the taxing bodies that are out there, and they file those in our office. We take the assessed value from the assessor and figure out what a tax rate would be for your individual tax bills. So based on what they give us, they say that they want, those taxing bodies, and then the amount of that your home is worth from the assessor's office. We calculate that and do a tax extension. Then the bill is sent on to, or the information is sent on to the treasurer's office, who then performs the tax bill.
I think the whole thing would be under the auspices of the treasurer. That's interesting.
That's how that works. The county clerk does the extension, is the part.
Well, unfortunately, the old clock has done what it always does to us on Viewpoint. We've talking about Sally Litter as county clerk and what a great job she does, and that she does. But she couldn't do it without a great staff.
Absolutely.
And so let's pay homage to the great staff that you have as we sign off here. We always try to come up with something about the subject matter, and I found one about voting. It says, think well before voting, but not too well. There are already too many abstainers. Work on that one, folks. Thank you for Viewpoint.